All right, let's dive into one of the most tangled and frankly disturbing stories of our time, the Epstein Files. We're talking about a story of unbelievable wealth, hidden crimes, and a question that just won't go away. How did he get away with it for so long?
And it all comes to a head on this one day, August 10th, 2019. Jeffrey Epstein, a man who literally held the secrets of some of the most powerful people on the planet, is found dead in his jail cell. The official story? Suicide. But the question started almost immediately. Was it really that simple? Or was he silenced to make sure those secrets died right there with him?
So, to really get why this whole silenced theory has so much steam, you have to look closer at the bizarre circumstances surrounding that night. I mean, just think about the sheer number of things that had to go wrong, all at the same time. We're in one of the most high-security jails in the country, and the CCTV cameras pointed at his cell mysteriously malfunctioned. The two guards who were supposed to be watching him, they apparently fell asleep for hours and later admitted to faking the records. And maybe the most baffling part, Epstein had been taken off suicide watch just a few days earlier, even after a suspected first attempt. A whole lot of coincidences, right? Or is it something else entirely? And this is where the two stories really clash. On one side, you have the official ruling, suicide by hanging, case closed. But on the other side, you've got this massive public theory that he was murdered to protect the powerful people he was connected to. And honestly, with all the strange things that happened that night, it's pretty hard to just dismiss that theory. Okay, so to figure out why anyone would want this guy silenced, we need to rewind a bit. Who exactly was Jeffrey Epstein? And how did he manage to build an empire that gave him so much dangerous power?
You know, his backstory is something straight out of a movie. In the 1970s, Jeffrey Epstein was just a math teacher at a fancy private school, but he was smart and he was a networker. He quickly used his connections to jump into the world of high finance on Wall Street. He got billionaires like Leslie Wexner, the guy who founded Victoria's Secret, to trust him. And pretty soon, he was managing their fortunes and building a massive one of his own.
And with all that money, he built himself a private kingdom, an island in the U.S. Virgin Islands called Little St. James. To the outside world, it looked like paradise, but in reality, it was the center of a horrific criminal operation. In this place, I mean, you can't make this stuff up. We're talking about 72 acres of pure luxury, a strange temple-like building with a golden dome, and, get this, rumors of underground tunnels. Why would a private home need tunnels, right? The whole island was covered in security cameras, and his guests flew in on his private jet, which had the disgusting nickname the Lolita Express. Every single detail just screams secrecy and control. But here's the thing. Epstein wasn't some lone wolf. No, he built this huge web of influence by surrounding himself with the most powerful people in the world. The flight logs from that private jet read like a who's who of global power. The source material points to several big names. You've got former President Bill Clinton, who flew on that jet 26 times, Donald Trump, who was a friend back in the 90s, Britain's Prince Andrew, who was famously accused by survivor Virginia Giuffre, even someone like Bill Gates was in his social circle. These weren't just casual friendships, they were his shield. They gave him legitimacy. And you know this secrecy was totally deliberate. In emails that came out from Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's main partner in crime, Prince Andrew was supposedly called by a codename the Invisible Man. This shows you they were actively trying to hide their association. So this all leads to the big question, right? Why were all these powerful people hanging around with him? The most common theory, of course, is blackmail. When the FBI finally raided his homes, they found stacks and stacks of CDs and photos. It fueled the idea that Epstein wasn't just entertaining his guests. He was collecting dirt on them to make sure they stayed quiet and kept coming back. For years, that network worked like a charm and protected him. But the courage of his victims is what finally started to bring it all crashing down, leading to a long, frustrating fight for justice. And when you look at the timeline, you really see what an uphill battle this was. It started way back in 2005 with a brave report from Courtney Wild. But then, in 2008, the system completely failed. A prosecutor named Alexander Acosta cut Epstein a secret sweetheart deal that basically let him off the hook. It took another 10 years and some incredible journalism from Julie K. Brown to expose that rotten deal and finally force his rearrest in 2019. So after all that, for that first conviction, how much time did he actually serve? Get this, 13 months. And a lot of that was on work release, where he got to leave a private wing of the jail every day and go to his office.
For crimes against dozens of young women, it was a total mockery of justice.
Now, you can't talk about Epstein without talking about Ghislaine Maxwell. The daughter of a British media mogul, she was absolutely central to this whole nightmare. A lot of the survivors say she wasn't just an accomplice, she was the mastermind. She used her high society status to find and groom vulnerable girls, acting as the friendly female face of a monster.
And while Epstein escaped his final day in court by dying, Maxwell did not. In 2022, she was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. Just think about that, 20 years, compared to Epstein's initial 13-month deal. For so many of his victims, her conviction was the first real piece of justice they ever got.
So, Epstein might be gone, but this story, it is far from over, because he left something behind, a huge paper trail of secrets that we now just call the Epstein Files.
The fight to get those secrets out in the open is still happening right now. Public pressure led to laws demanding their release, but it has been a really slow and frustrating process. Some documents have been unsealed, but get this, over 1 million pages are still sealed away from public view, probably containing names and details that some very powerful people would rather keep buried. Now, in the middle of all this darkness, there has been at least some financial accountability. A compensation fund was set up using money from Epstein's estate. It's paid out over $121 million to more than 150 survivors, which is at the very least a formal acknowledgement of the pain they went through. So when you put it all together, where are we today? Epstein is dead. Maxwell is in prison. A few of the files are out. But with over 1 million pages of documents still locked away, the biggest questions are still hanging in the air. How much of the real story do we still not know? And who else was involved? In the end, the whole Jeffrey Epstein saga is a really chilling lesson, isn't it? It shows you that if you have enough money and power, you can build a shield. You can bend the justice system. You can hide the most unbelievable crimes for decades. But as this whole thing proves, you can't erase them forever. The truth eventually has a way of coming out.